Testament figure, James or Mary or Peter or Thomas, though the books were written long after these people had died. Many stories in the apocryphal Gospels are fanciful and completely out of character with the Jesus we meet in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Still, it is possible that occasionally some of the apocryphal Gospels preserved traditions that were historical, stories that had been passed down by the Church but not included in the canonical Gospels. For example, the infancy Gospel of Thomas, not to be confused with the Gospel of Thomas, is thought to have been written around AD 150. It is a collection of short stories purporting to be about Jesus' life from age 5 to age 12, including the story also told in Luke about Jesus being accidentally left by his parents in Jerusalem. The infancy Gospel of Thomas contains a much larger role for Joseph than we find in the New Testament Gospels. In it, we find Joseph sending Jesus to school to be educated, not common among the children of first-century woodworkers. Joseph attempts to discipline Jesus, grabbing him by the ear at one point, and often attempts to help Jesus use his powers wisely. The infancy Gospel of James, sometimes known as the Proto-Evangelium of James, or simply the Gospel of James, is also thought to have been written around AD 150. It claims to have been written by James, whom the Gospels refer to as one of the brothers of Christ. The book gives us the earliest account of Mary's birth, her childhood, and a particular account of Joseph's age when he married Mary. It suggests that Mary was raised by the priests in the temple courts from the age of 3 until she was 12. According to this apocryphal gospel, the priests sought a husband for Mary among the older widowers from the house of David, with the intention that she be cared for by her husband as a father might care for his daughter, or a grandfather for his granddaughter. As the widowers gathered, each was given a rod or stick. Joseph, himself an elderly widower, took one of these rods, and from it a dove sprang forth and landed on Joseph's head. Other versions have flowers bloom from the rod. Hence the priests knew that Joseph was chosen by God to be Mary's husband. The account is legendary, as are many of the stories found in the apocryphal Gospels. It is the earliest depiction of Joseph as an elderly widower when he became engaged to Mary. This depiction allowed Christians to read about Jesus' brothers and sisters in the New Testament Gospels as if they were Joseph's children by a previous wife, and hence Jesus' half-siblings. If we had only the New Testament Gospels of Matthew and Luke to go by, we would not necessarily think of Joseph as an elderly widower. The accounts don't preclude this, but they don't suggest it either. Instead, if this engagement were a typical engagement, we would imagine that Mary was 13 or 14 when she got married. Remember, in ancient Israel, a girl became a woman with her first menstrual cycle, and was married shortly after that. And that Joseph was only a little older. Boys were required to have apprenticed under their fathers and be able to support themselves and a family before they married. So, if Joseph were not an elderly widower, we would suppose he may have been 14, 15, or perhaps 16 when he took Mary as his wife. Matthew chapter 1, verse 24. Yet the story of Joseph as an elderly widower took hold in the church. Sometime around the 6th century, a document called the History of Joseph the Carpenter was compiled, consisting of traditions concerning the Holy Family. In the document, Joseph was said to be 90 years old when his first wife died, leaving him with 6 children to raise. Not only was Joseph described as a carpenter, but because of his piety and wisdom, the legend had developed that he'd also been a priest. This apocryphal account said that a year after his first wife's death, Joseph was chosen to become the husband of Mary. 2 years later, during a betrothal period when a couple was regarded as married but could not yet consummate their relationship, you'll learn more about that in chapter 2, Mary became pregnant. It was then that Joseph formally married her, which would have made him 93 when Jesus was born. According to this story, Joseph died at the age of 111 when Jesus was 18. Legends such as this built upon one another and shaped the view that many in the church had of Joseph. Whether the story is true or not, it supported an idea that began emerging with the church's deepening devotion to Mary.